Well, Anna Werner is in Kalamazoo. Anna, Dalton is expected to be back in court next week. What is next in this case?
Well, obviously, investigators continue their work. You're going to have, the court process moving forward with other hearings for Dalton. And then, of course, you might have, you could have a plea agreement, you could have a trial, depending on what happens here. But the investigators, I think, are still trying to answer the question of why this happened. You know, even as you saw there, the neighbor that I spoke with, who has been his friend and his neighbor for 17 years, says they would talk all the time. He was friendly. He thought he appeared happy. He had a wife and two teenage children that he talked about a lot. He was even raising a new German Shepherd dog because he felt he needed a guard dog. That was the only thing his friend and neighbor could think of that might possibly have been a clue. Was that, he said he had been broken into a couple times, Dalton did, and that he felt he needed a guard dog. But he said he was very actively engaged in his daily comings and goings, and nobody at this point appears to understand inside the mind of Jason Dalton right now.
Yeah, Anna, I mean, so I guess the bottom line, that neighbor, what he relayed to you is that Dalton was just a normal guy.
As far as he could tell, yes, he appeared to be the same guy that he had known for 17 years. They would talk across the fence, visit with each other. He would always, said Dalton would always, raise a hand and wave at him and say, "Hey, how you doing?" when they would pass every morning. But even he's looking for the clues. He's asking himself, what kinds of things did he see happening with Dalton? Were there any clues at all? And I think the clues are going to come when people actually get to hear from Dalton himself, if and when that happens. You never know the inside of somebody's mind until you can, talk to them or do some type of psychological analysis to see if he is having any problems with mental illness or any other kinds of troubles.
And Dalton lived there with his wife and children?
He did. We were at the house, as you saw yesterday. His wife and children are not there right now, as you can probably understand why not. The police were there executing a search warrant shortly after they caught Dalton, a few hours in the early morning hours of Sunday. And we understand that they did find a very large number of weapons and a large amount of ammunition, according to the prosecutor who we talked to a couple of days ago. And actually, his neighbor said that he was very surprised to hear that he knew that Dalton had a couple pistols, but did not consider him to be a major gun hobbyist, not a hunter, anything like that. So, there is a question about the firearms. We do know that they were, according to authorities, they were legally purchased firearms, but still that he had a large quantity of them. We still don't know exactly what they were, but the other night I asked the prosecutor, I said, well, when you say large numbers of weapons, does that include assault rifles? And he sort of smiled at me a little bit and said, well, it might.
A big deal has been made out of the fact that he was an Uber driver, but Uber is typically sometimes like a part-time job. Did he have any other employment?
It's not 100% clear to me right now. I have heard reports that he was still possibly working in insurance adjusting, and that he might have been moonlighting as an Uber driver. I've heard those reports. We don't have those confirmed right now. So, there is a question of whether he was sort of just moonlighting, using Uber as an extra job. I did see in one of the newspaper reports, somebody who evidently was his customer in December said that she had taken a ride with him, and he had told her that he had just started driving for Uber and that he had some complaints. So there's these suggestions out there, but some of this is really not completely nailed down yet. We're still trying to find more details.
All right, Anna Werner in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Anna, thank you.